Hi guys, and welcome back to Mind the Leaves. My name is Sam, and today we get to talk all about this absolutely gorgeous Dendrobium Royal Wings orchid. We're going to talk about how to take care of these plants in general, and then we're going to dive a little deeper into my specific plant and a few things that I think I could be doing a little bit better. Dendrobium Royal Wings has gorgeous blooms, and they're so long lasting, they can actually last for months. Mine started blooming early January, and we're now late February here, and I'm fully expecting to have these flowers through March. And each one of these pseudobulbs, which we actually call a cane because they're so skinny and hard, can actually bloom 3 times within its lifetime. And the entire plant itself can actually bloom twice a year. So you're getting a lot of blooms that last you a really long time, so basically just a really awesome plant. Now, it is commonly said that these flowers have a fragrance, but I have never been able to detect any scent on them. If you have, please let me know and tell me what you think it smells like. There are a lot of different types of Dendrobium orchids. There's your Nobiles, your Phalaenopsis types. This one is known as a LATOURIA type. And basically what that means is that it's a warm growing orchid type, so it doesn't need to have that winter rest with cooler temperatures like some other orchids do. Instead, it likes to be warm and cozy all year long. Something that's great about this type of orchid is that it's evergreen. Just to compare with another type of dendrobium, I have this Dendrobium supernester here, and as you can see, he is losing all of his leaves for winter. He pretty much goes bare cane for winter. I could even just take these ones right off. So he totally loses all of his leaves and defoliates in the winter. But my Royal Wings doesn't. It always looks amazing. It's evergreen, it never loses its leaves, and honestly, this guy is always pushing out new growth. It doesn't really seem like he even has a growth season. He always has new canes coming up somewhere. Okay, let's go over water, fertilizer, sunlight, all that kind of stuff. For sunlight, this Dendrobium really prefers to have bright indirect light. Now, the more light this plant gets, the better the bloom show will be. Absolutely true. But be careful, because this plant is sensitive to harsh, direct sunlight, so it can burn. I personally keep mine in an eastern-facing window where it gets that nice, warm morning sun, but you could certainly keep it in a west or south-facing window, maybe just with a sheer curtain to help protect it from that scorching midday sun. For water requirements for this plant, you want to let the soil either dry out or almost dry out before you water it again. This plant does not like to be left soggy, and it can get root rots. But it also is a very thirsty plant because it basically just never stops growing. And it doesn't like to be left dry for too long. So a good practice is as soon as it's dried out, water it again. You don't want to let it stay dry for too long. For fertilizer, just use a balanced fertilizer, but do it at a quarter strength. And you can fertilize this plant every 2 weeks to a month in the spring and summer, and then cut back in the wintertime. It's also a good idea to just flush your orchid every once a month or so. Basically just taking it right up to your tap and letting the water flow through for about 60 seconds. And that's just going to help pull out some of the salts that have potentially been building up in the soil from your fertilizer over time. And what kind of soil do we actually use for Dendrobium orchids anyway? Well, it's actually not soil per se, so much as a combination of bark chips, large porous rocks, and sometimes little sphagnum moss mixed in there. Another great thing about this orchid is that it is so tough. It's tough and easy to grow. My cats actually knocked this orchid off of a table a few weeks ago, and it didn't bust a cane, and the flowers were still completely intact. So super, super tough. It's also easy to grow. I recommend this type of orchid for just about anyone, including beginners, because you can actually rebloom this orchid much, much easier than you can, say, a Phalaenopsis orchid. Phalaenopsis orchids need a lot more light to rebloom than a Dendrobium. So even if you don't have a whole lot of light in your house, you could probably rebloom a Dendrobium. Now that we've gone over the general care for these Dendrobium orchids, let's dive a little deeper into my specific Dendrobium right here and look at some things that I think I could be doing a little better. So first off, it's blooming, which is amazing, and it's always such a great feeling when one of your indoor plants blooms for you because it means that you're at least doing something right. So big pat on the back for that. So happy. But at the same time, let's be honest here. This is a huge plant with many mature canes, a lot of potential for blooms here, and I have one single cane that is blooming. Now, yes, I'm completely over the moon with it, but I think next year I would like to have an even better display, and I think there are a few things that I can do to help make that happen. First off, I do think that she's getting enough light where she is. She does get that morning sun and then diffuse light throughout the rest of the day, so I think that's going pretty well. Having said that though, I'm sure that if I had her in a south-facing window with a sheer curtain, I would see a lot more blooms. Sadly, I can't do that, so she is going to stay in her eastern-facing window. But let's also take a look at the leaves and the canes. So when we look at the older, more mature canes, their leaves look really smooth, they look really good, but when we look at some of these newer canes, we can see that the leaves actually have some crinkling in them, a little bit of wrinkling, a little bit of that accordion look. And anytime you see that, that is definitely an indicator that your plant wants more water. So definitely telling me she would like a little bit more water there. And also if we look on the canes themselves, they are pretty heavily ridged. So they're not fully plump, they're not smooth. So both the leaves and the canes are kind of telling me she would like more water. So because of these signs, I'm going to start watering her more often. I had been watering her once a week, but now I'm going to bump it up to twice a week, and then we'll see how the new growths look. Another thing that could potentially be affecting this orchid is the fact that it desperately needs to be repotted. Really badly. It has so many canes here now. It has put on so much new growth since I got it about 2 years ago. And it also seems to be just choking itself out with roots. There's just absolutely no more space down in there. And I think that this overcrowding could really be affecting its water needs. So originally when I bought the plant and I was just watering it once a week, everything was going great and that seemed to completely suffice. But as it put on a bunch of more growth, it's pushing out those new canes all the time, and it totally colonized the substrate with its roots. So me watering it once a week probably just isn't enough to sustain this plant at this time now. Having said that though, I'm not actually going to implement these watering changes until the springtime. Once the spring comes in, I'll feel more comfortable giving it more water. While it's winter, we still want to make sure that the soil is drying out and then we're watering it, just to make sure we're not getting that nasty root rot. If you have any questions or any insight for me, please share that in the comments, because I would absolutely love to know what you guys think about this, how you care for your Dendrobium Royal Wings. And I just want to say thank you so much for hanging out with me here today. It's been a lot of fun. I love talking plants with you guys, so thank you so much. And until we get to hang out again, don't forget to take care of your plants and yourself.